everyone, to Beaver Stadium, nestled in Bucolic State College and home of the Penn State Nittany Lions, and one of the loudest, most passionate crowds you'll find anywhere in college football. There's nothing quite like a great rivalry matchup in college football. The bitterness, the intensity, the lifetime of memories that will come as a result of what we're about to see in this one.
This week on the Nittany Dispatch, the much anticipated debut of the NCAA football game. We get into the player ratings, some discussion about the gameplay, and some odds and ends from the new game this week on the Nittany Dispatch. Hello and welcome to the Nittany Dispatch. I am John Sauber, Penn State football reporter from the Center Daily Times. She is Audrey Snyder of The Athletic. And Audrey, we had some fun today.
John, let's just rip the Band-Aid right off. People are hearing this. It's Monday. Hopefully you're listening live. Well, not live, but right as the episode goes up.
Yes.
Right when the embargo lifts, we got our hands on an advanced copy of EA College Football 2025. John, it was like Christmas morning for you. I stumbled my way into one of these advanced copies on Friday. As we've discussed on here before, I am not a gamer. So what does one do with a code but no console?
That's right. Goes to the biggest degenerate they know. Yeah.
Text a friend and say, hey, can I come over to your house and use your PS5 that I haven't touched a video game in at least 15 years to maybe try and play this game? And oh yeah, I hope you can play too. We were all able to play.
It was delightful. And full disclosure, I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast before, but I'm taking vacation time to play this game, right? Like when I had it scheduled around when it would release, it also coincides with pretty much the last week of freedom before media day starts, and just a little happy coincidence there. But yeah, this has been anticipated for 11 years now, right? Like the last game to come out was NCAA football 14, which came out in 2013, obviously 11 years ago. I don't think this will surprise anyone who's listened to this pod before. I actually have my Xbox 360 still hooked up in my living room because on occasion I play that game. The Xbox is broken. The disc tray won't open, but that game is what's stuck inside. So it doesn't really matter. That's all I ever played on there anyway. So this was, yeah, you're right. Like this was going to be like Christmas morning for me, something that and I'm sure a lot of people that grew up on this game, because I played this a lot when I was in high school and everything, not just 14, but the iterations before it. But a lot of us have been waiting for this for a very long time, but there are some Penn State aspects to this.
I want to make something clear before we dive into this, though. I did clear this with John's wife before I torpedoed their weekend, and I said, hey, so this thing happened. Are you okay if I come over?
Yes.
But I promise John won't play the game repeatedly, until
That's
Monday
with
the actual release.
No promises were made. I have some work to do this weekend as well, but once that's done, I will be. I was joking with her before I came up here to record in my office and said, I'm going to go record the podcast and I'm going to move out to the basement for a week. And I'll see you next Sunday. But that will be how it goes.
At John's house now because I really, really enjoyed myself playing this game. And let's rip the Band-Aid off, John. The ratings.
Yes.
Any surprises?
So we knew going into this that because EA released the top 100 guys, we knew the top three, right? We knew that KJ Winston, Nick Singleton, and Abdul Carter were all 91 overalls. And I think it had come out too that Tyler Warren was a 90 overall, stuff that we'd kind of known. We didn't necessarily know where Drew Allar was. We didn't know where Kaytron Allen was, especially in comparison to Nick Singleton. Allar, an 88 overall. I believe he was
among QBs.
Yeah, tied for 13th among QBs. Notably, I think kind of funny, Arch Manning, an 87 overall. Just something very interesting, especially when he's someone that's been advertising the game and everything, and doesn't have a ton of reps. And for those of us who've played the game for a long time, you don't see freshmen with an 87 overall. So I think that is fascinating. But yeah, Drew Allar with that 88 overall. One of the things I thought was most interesting, 96 throw power, right? This is what the people want. People want to chuck it deep. And rest assured that he can. Notable too that he has 80 speed, only 2 speeds slower than Bo Prabula, something that I thought was really interesting.
Really wild.
Yeah. And although on some level, I think it kind of makes sense because if you think about the acceleration, actually, we did
Yeah.
not check the acceleration, probably should have, and with the benefit of hindsight. But the acceleration is where Bo should be significantly better, right? If we're talking true long speed, like 40-yard
Mhm.
dash, I wouldn't be surprised if it's closer than people would think. I would expect Bo to win, obviously, but I would expect that to be a little closer just because Drew is longer and has better long speed.
Hey, we hear all about the competitor of the day rankings in the actual football season with Bo Prabula, 76 overall. But yeah, I think, John, the thing that I took away from this, and Ethan Grunkemeyer is 75 overall, as
Yes.
well. Jackson Smolik, I don't have in my notes, but we are such journalism nerds that I showed up at John's house with my notebook and said, I'm here to take notes on the game to report back to the podcast. Um, so yeah, this is really kind of how nerds go about watching
We
this
were in the
game.
weeds on this. We were
Yeah,
investigating every overall, every rating we could, with the exception of the quarterback acceleration, of course.
yeah, and I think and again, I did get to play it a little bit. John did as well. I enjoyed my time playing with Drew Allar. I'm sure a lot of Penn State fans will as well. Um, but I think, John, we talk about the running backs and the co-starters in the real world and kind of the disparity there. Nick Singleton, we knew the 91 overall. Kaytron Allen, 87 overall rating.
Yeah, I think this is interesting. I also don't necessarily think it's correct, right? If I had to pick a lead back going into this season, I think I would pick Kaytron. That's nothing against Nick Singleton. I think they're both elite backs. If I were to make these ratings, I would have said this is where we probably missed the boat, right? We should have done a prediction
Yeah.
before we opened that roster up and then compared, turn this into a little game. But I would have probably said that Singleton would have been around like a 90, and then Allen would have been around a 90, or both. You know what I mean? Both at an 89, somewhere in that range. Like I think the range. I think Kaytron is at the low end of what his range should be, and Singleton's at the high end of what his should be going into this year. It would make a lot of sense to me if they met at the midpoint and both of them were 89s. Singleton much faster than Kaytron. Kaytron, I believe, had high 80s speed. Not ideal for a game like this, but as we learned playing the game, there's more than just hammering that R2 button and hitting the hole and run as fast as you can, right? You got to navigate that space.
Oh,
Uh,
we'll get to my big
yeah,
showdown in the national
listen,
championship game here
let's
in a
be clear
bit,
about
John.
something. Audrey played one full game and a 2-minute game. One of those games was on freshman difficulty. The other was on Heisman. I'm sure the listeners can guess how those both went. Uh, but
Yes.
no, I do think that they're like, I just think it's a range, right? And I think they're probably one's a little too high, one's a little too low. And if this is part of what I think will be really cool about this game compared to years past when it came out, because of NIL, because guys are officially in the game, you can do roster updates, right? Like they can update ratings
Mhm.
as guys play well. It can be like Madden and other sports games that people play where you update that. And, Nick Singleton has a good 3 weeks, and so does Kaytron Allen, but Kaytron Allen's slightly better. Maybe we see they're both 91s, right? Like maybe we see by, whatever, Illinois, one Kaytron has taken over the starting role or whatever it is. I think that is one of the more exciting things, and one that I think may be necessary at wide receiver because it was not great
Well,
from a
I
Penn
want to go
State
back
standpoint.
real quick to one thing, John, because I think you brought up a really good point when I was over in your man cave earlier today.
Sorry.
And that is, because again, I grew up playing Madden, and my brother's older, so I had to fight for my reps on the controller, right? But you always hear about the 99 club, right? And the overall ratings
Yeah.
where it's different here. And
Oh,
you talked
yes.
about kind of scaling it down a little bit. You get Kaytron Allen with that 87. And I wanted to pull up while you were talking, I was pulling up a story that I wrote on The Athletic earlier this spring. I was kind of surveying players throughout spring football about like what they hoped their ranking would be or their rating would be and those kinds of things. And Kaytron Allen said to me back in the spring, I'm gonna say hopefully like a 90. I hope I don't get played. Again, 87 in this, which again we kind of feel like it's a bit of a tough scale that they kind of evaluated
Yeah.
guys on.
Well, and to be clear, when we talked about this earlier, I compared this to you to how EA has done with what used to be FIFA, what is now EA Sports FC, like the soccer ratings, right? Like you mentioned Madden, like there are a bunch of 99s. Like you play a bunch of sports games, there's a bunch of 99s. In FIFA, like, Messi, greatest soccer player of all time. I think the highest he ever got when I would play would be like 95, 96, right? There's no one rated a 97 or above in NCAA 25, or in EA Sports College Football 25. That's going to be taking,
Whoa,
that's going to take
whoa.
some serious getting used to for me. But there's no one above 96, I believe, at release date. So there is no 99 like that. That I think should be an important note, that even the best players aren't like, 99 overalls. Even like the top two quarterbacks are 93s, and Carson Beck and Shador Sanders. And there are only two players in the game with 99 speed. One of them, former Penn State connection, and Nick Harbor at South Carolina,
Mhm.
who I'm going to guess will be a cheat code in the game at 6'5", 240 with 99 speed. But yeah, this
Yeah,
is it's different. And like, I wouldn't compare it to Madden. If you're someone who plays that, like, I wouldn't compare the rating scale to that, because I do think this is different in how they did it. I think that it's pretty clear based on when you look at the ratings that it's different.
and for those, and again, John and I got really in the weeds on the Penn State roster, especially. No Quentin Martin Jr. on there, no
Yes.
Corey Smith on there, which again, it's going to be interesting. We'll get into the people that weren't included on the roster as we kind of go through this. But if people are looking right out of the get go on Monday to try and they're curious about Quentin Martin Jr., you won't find him on there. But again, updates can happen, and I'm curious too. Like one of the
I
things
would
that
venture
came
to
up.
guess.
Go ahead. Go
Yeah, I
ahead.
was gonna say, I would venture to guess that, so early release for this game is today at 4 p.m. This obviously releasing on Monday, like, and regular release is Friday. I would venture to guess by Friday there are going to be a lot of annoyed, frustrated, whatever college football players who either didn't get the paperwork in or didn't know or whatever, and are suddenly clamoring to get in the game. And my guess is that pretty quickly there's going to be an update that gets some guys in that didn't get it done for one reason or another, and a lot of the absences are taken care of, or it's not. I wouldn't
Yeah.
expect this to be a big
I don't
issue.
think it's an intentional thing, and I bring this up because when I was
Yeah.
reporting in the spring on players and their thoughts about being in the game, if they were going to be in the game at Penn State, and one of the responses that I heard from a lot of guys was like, "Oh shoot, I hope I responded to that email. I wanted to be, and I hope I
Yep.
did." So I think you might see some of that kind of around the country, but Cam Wallace is in there. So
Yeah.
again, I think too, and again, like keep in mind, you just had scholarship guys which like Corey Smith, the running back, like these are
Yes.
guys who just got the campus this summer, right? So like there are differences there, but there are a couple older guys that we will get to too that we thought would be there that weren't.
Yeah, and we'll finish up this wide receiver discussion that I dragged us into, and I think we can get to those guys then,
Let's
because that's probably the next most
let's do
notable
it. Let's
thing.
do
But
it.
yeah, the highest rated receiver is Julian Fleming at 83 overall. One overall higher than Keandre Lambert Smith, one overall higher than Dante Cephas. For those keeping score at home, I think that's pretty notable, considering one guy was in the door and two went out. Not, of course, not that these ratings are everything when it comes to the actual game, but when it comes to the game, like the Penn State team you're playing with will be better than it would have been had Fleming left. Also notable, Ohio State has three receivers above an 83, all above what Fleming is rated as. But
We were out here
yeah,
doing all the work as soon as
that's
John
right.
we pulled, and for to kind of set the scene, I'm sitting there in John's man cave and we were pulling up this roster, going through it like the nerds that we are, cross-checking the Penn State roster and our
Yes.
scholarship charts with the roster in the game, figured out who's in, who's out. And then we said, "Oh, what about the transfers? Let's go look at that." And
Yep.
then right away I said, "We look at the receivers." I said, "Yeah, what about Ohio State's?" Like again, I'm thinking of it like the actual game, which I'm sure, the real life game that many people will. Malik McLean, Malik Maga. We also kind of went in the weeds there on those. McLean was a 77 overall, Mega a 73. So again, for the people that were a few of you that we've heard from that were in kind of the sky is falling category with the changes in the receiving core, I think you're going to be fine.
Yeah, McLean, the highest rated receiver at Arizona State, probably says more about Arizona State than anything else. But yeah, Harrison Wallace was next up at an 80 overall, which I if there is anyone to benefit from a roster update or continual roster updates throughout the season, I think it might be Wallace, right? Like
Mhm.
if I had to pick an under the radar candidate to be like a 90 overall by the end of the year, I think Wallace would probably be that guy, right? Like, I mean, Drew's obvious, right? Like Drew
Yeah.
Allar being a 90 at some point, if that happens, or if like Kaytron, like we talked about. But if I had to pick someone that's in that like 80 or lower range, I think I would pick Trey Wallace as having a legitimate chance to become, that 90 overall guy, that true number one option at receiver.
Now, I will say, John, because I will we'll get to my big return to the sticks in a bit here. But I was torching one particular team in the Commonwealth in my game
Yes.
with Caden Saunders. Punt returner, again, a lot of speed,
I think 2
elusiveness.
punt return touchdowns for you in that game with him.
Oh yeah, we'll be sure to we'll tally up all of my stats there. I believe it was 3 receiving touchdowns with Caden Saunders, 2
4
special
catches,
teams
85
touchdowns.
yards. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
I
Caden
was I had
Saunders,
fun playing with him.
and he has the kind of speed, low 90s speed that can be effective, you know what I
Mhm.
mean, in a game like that too, and he's a slot, like that's you're always gonna be able to throw it a little bit easier to slots in games like this. Although I will say the gameplay is, different than like, I've played Madden for years.
Okay.
It's definitely different, right? Like, it feels um, more responsive, I guess is the way that I would phrase it, right? Like it feels like you have more control, I guess, over guys you're controlling. But I do think that will help with someone like Caden Saunders. Of course, there was the litany of other receivers on the roster. I don't know that anything in particular there stood out to me. Was there anything to
No.
you that was notable? Yeah, it was just
Not really, yeah, which is again, it mimics mimics kinda real life
yes.
there, and it's a lot
And
of
there are
unknowns.
2 and there are 2 fake receivers there, just like there were 2 fake running backs. We would assume that Tyzier Denmark will take one of those spots in an update
Yeah.
eventually when
Peter
now that he's
Gonzalez
on
wasn't in
campus.
either, yeah,
Yeah,
either
Peter
freshman.
Gonzalez as well. Like those 2 seem like the obvious ones. Just like at running back, it seems like Corey Smith and Quentin Martin Jr. are obvious like candidates to take up a spot. Um, the offensive line we can kind of gloss over
Tight
quickly.
ends,
Nothing.
tight ends.
Yeah. Oh
No,
yeah. Sorry,
yeah, no
Tyler
no
Warren.
Yeah, Tyler Warren, which we
Yes.
knew he was gonna be a stud. He is. Luke Reynolds, they absolutely nailed his hair. I think
Yes.
he looks
Yes.
really really cool. Like I think they did a good job with that.
A,
But
a 79
notably,
overall is a true
mhm,
freshman too, by the way, for Luke Reynolds. Really good. Warren is a 90, by the way. But yeah, the 79 for Reynolds is like that's a quality rating right off the jump.
79. They made his hair look really good. We'll get to the folks that maybe
Yeah,
didn't
they
get
did.
as great of glam ups in the game, but no Andrew Rapplier, no Joey Schlaffer. So I don't know. Again, we'll see updates, kind of what happened there. But if you were hoping to play with Andrew Rapplier right out of the gate, you might not find him.
Yeah. They did have Khalil Dinkins in there, obviously Jerry Cross as well. Tyler Dzansky, long snapper, was at tight end. But yeah, I think Rapplier is a pretty notable one. Probably the most notable offensive omission that isn't like with Denmark and well, I guess Quentin Martin's
Quinn
notable
Martin,
too.
yeah,
Martin's notable because he was on campus and like
in the
able
winter,
to do it, right?
yeah.
Like, but with Denmark and Gonzalez, it's like okay, like they didn't get to Penn State too late. That's understandable. Same with Donnie Harbor at on the offensive line. Same with Corey
Egan
Smith at running back.
Boyer, yeah,
Yeah,
like
Egan
yeah,
Boyer. But at tight end, like Schlaffer and Rapplier were here for
yeah,
a year, right? Like this is not, these are not guys that are just coming in the door. So I think it's interesting that they weren't there. I don't know if they just overlooked it or what have you, but I think the odds of a guy not ending up in the game are higher with someone that isn't a true freshman just because like there you can eliminate that option of they just weren't there in time, right? Like so I'd be curious to
yeah.
see if and when they end up in the game. Offensive line, I don't believe there were any notable
Yeah,
I don't,
just some
I'm fairly
some younger
certain
guys. Yeah,
I'm
just kind
fairly
of
certain
younger guys that
everyone
you.
there was real though, right? Like there was nobody that was a made up player
I
along the
believe
offensive
so.
line.
I believe so.
It,
Javen Williams was an 80 overall. Cooper Cousins 76.
there was a left guard that was made up. I now that I remember
Was
this,
there?
yes, because I remember you said the name. I was
Yes,
like, that's not real.
yes,
I
yeah.
can't.
Because
I can see the name in my head when we were looking at the screen. But yeah, I thought it was interesting that Drew Shelton is not much more highly rated than Javen Williams. Javen Williams obviously still has some of the shine from being a high end recruit. So, uh, for those who are looking to get Williams some reps early in the game, they will be able to do that. He's an 80 overall. But yeah, I think mostly like run of the mill stuff for the offensive line. It's good. Like I don't think it's like, I believe every starter's at least in the 80s, and there's some youth there at every spot. Um, the defensive line is where I think it gets a little more interesting, right? Abdul Carter is a 91 overall, like I said. Dani Dennis-Sutton was pretty low, all things considered.
Yeah, so I was enjoying going between playing with Dani and playing with Abdul
Yes.
because as one does, right? I want to rush the passer in these video games. No Joseph Mapoye, no Mason Robinson. Again, we're getting in the
Yes.
weeds here. But you're gonna have a lot of fun playing with these defensive ends. Like that to me that was like the major takeaway as I was torching the team from elsewhere in the state. Just again, sack after sack with these guys. Like you're gonna have a ton of fun with them. But along the interior, there was another notable guy that we were scrolling through and we said, "Hey, where's Hakeem
Yeah.
Beamon?"
Yeah.
Wasn't in
And
there.
by the way, you mentioned how fun it would be with those guys. It'd be a lot more fun if you had Hakeem Beamon and his speed on the interior rushing next to them. But yeah, Beamon not in there again, an older guy. Like we don't know the reasoning. We haven't
Mhm.
had a chance to talk to Hakeem or anything like that. So be interesting to see if he eventually gets added. That's obviously of the positions we've gone through. Like that's the most notable one so far. Beamon is
Caleb
to me,
Artis wasn't there, yeah, but
yeah,
Beeman
no
was very
artist there. But Beeman is probably a starter, right? Like off the top of my
mhm.
head, I would think he would start over Zane Durant at this point, who is in the game. Probably not as fast as he should be either. I think he had 67 speed. Zane Durant is faster than that. Um, but yeah, something worth monitoring there. See if he ends up being in the game. Uh, but yeah, the defensive ends are great. Like Dani Dennis-Sutton started. I think he's an 83 or an 85. I can't remember this
I
off
was
the
gonna
top
say
of my
that's
head.
yeah, I do
Yeah,
not have him in
it
my
was.
notes, I apologize
Well,
for that.
that's because he was so low on the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was surprised. That's another great candidate to be a 90 plus. But honestly, might be their best player on their roster by the end of the year. Uh, Linebacker was pretty run of the mill. I don't think there anything
Yeah,
necessarily stood
nothing
out. Tony
nothing
Rojas
stood
was,
out there.
yeah,
Again,
Rojas
a
was
good
good.
job with the hair.
Yes, every player at the position was real. There were no.
Mhm.
I do remember this. There were no made up players at linebacker. I don't think there was anyone even missing that we have that was at
No, I
linebacker.
had no linebacker omissions on my list, I do and same thing, cornerbacks were pretty much everybody Kenny Wosley, but again, wasn't there,
Yes,
true freshman, like, you can kinda figure that one out. AJ Harris, I think, is another guy that people are gonna enjoy because again, we haven't actually
another
seen
guy
him
that
in a
might be
Penn
pretty
State
highly
uniform
rated by the
play.
end of it.
Yeah, I think you're looking at risers there, he's one for sure.
As at
Um
corner, really in
Mhm.
general, I would guess. So they have a bunch of guys that are rated around like 78 to 82 right now. I would guess that within, halfway through the season, at least two of those guys are like 86s, 87s, and are suddenly clear cut starters and quality players. But in the defensive backfield, the most notable omission, I think, from
Yes.
Penn State's roster, no Jalen Reed. Uh,
Yeah.
Very curious. Jalen Reed, who is going to Big Ten Media Days, like has been a,
We'll hear from him in
I
a
think,
couple weeks, and we'll be able to ask.
yeah, we'll have a chance to ask him if I will. I'm going to guess that there are going to be plenty of guys tweeting about this. We saw Keandre Lambert Smith, as you hint at our guys that he
Mm,
did dirty a little bit with this, but tweeting about how his guy didn't have any hair, which is a tough look for a guy with, last we saw
really
him
tough
had
look.
dreads. Yeah,
Yeah.
like not ideal, but yeah, Reed is like, it's, I don't know. That's a tough one because he is the kind of guy that you listen, anyways, that I would move to linebacker and just, you know what I mean, make him into
Yeah.
a big hitting
You're husky.
linebacker. Yeah, play him at the Husky, right? Exactly how Tom Allen's gonna do it. But yeah, just KJ Winston at the top of
Uh,
the depth chart with Saki Wheatley there.
yeah, also no Makai Flowers, no Lamont
Yes.
Payne.
You
So
wonder how much of that is roster space too, just because
right.
like it's a position where you're probably going to play only a two deep, and
Mhm.
usually, again, those who play these games a lot, you're going to have like three safeties at most at each safety spot. So you wonder how deep they can even go with it. Vabu
Well,
Toure was in
John.
there. No, Dewan Lane
Yes,
was in there either.
yes, yeah, no lane. But the other thing, you mentioned playing so many safeties. You got to keep your players happy in the game now because the
That's right.
transfer portal, we were kind of toying around with that a little bit, which is a really
I
awesome
lost
wrinkle.
I lost Ethan
Yeah.
Grunkemeyer after year one because of our play style. So it is something you have to monitor.
And
Speaking of which, by the way, just to
there's one
I was
more
gonna
omission from the game.
go ahead.
Notable omission. No punter Riley Thompson.
Yes,
Freshman, sophomore. They probably didn't know what year to put him as. So
I was going to say, you have to wonder if they just didn't know what class he was, and that's the fairest reason they could have to not put him in the game. But yeah, that is a notable one. That was a fake player at that position. I think for the most part, like guys, Reed, Beeman, Rapouillet are the really big ones that you notice, and that you wonder like what it ends up meaning or if they end up in the game. But yeah, I thought all in all, they did a good job with the ratings. There were, like I said, there were some spots where we fly a little too close to the sun on some level, so we see it all the time. Mm-hmm. Like we would have Singleton and Allen closer to each other, I would say, and maybe maybe have someone like, I don't know, Zane Durant being a little faster and minutia like that. Yeah. But I think all in all, it's fairly accurate.
And we went through too, and also looked at the 3 highest speeds on the team, 3 best speeds.
Yes.
3 guys with 94s. So that was running back Cam Wallace, running back Nick Singleton, wide receiver Amari Evans, which again, John, bringing the beat writer perspective into this, you and I both then said, ooh, we wonder how fast King Mack is. So then we started scrolling through the rosters. King Mack is a 79 overall, but his speed is a 98. So again, you talk about
that's
transfer portal losses and would have had a lot of fun playing with King Mack.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. But we did simulate 2 seasons, as we mentioned, as Penn State.
John is gonna give people a lot of heartburn here.
You might want to just, if you fast forward 2 minutes, I will not blame you. We simulated the 2024 season, and that may or may not have resulted in a 9-3 record with a bowl loss in the Las Vegas Bowl. I believe that one was to Missouri.
No. You lost. You beat Missouri in the music.
That's right. We lost.
Gosh, if I can
Kansas State.
Yes,
it was Kansas State in 2024 because of the Dante Cephas. Yeah. So that's tough. And the way it happened, though, would have been especially heartbreaking for Penn State fans. They're 9-2 heading into the last week of the season, number 5 team in the country, pretty much locked into the playoff with a real chance at being the 5th overall seed, playing a Maryland team that, isn't going to be great. Like, nothing to see there. We simulate that one last week and see that Penn State lost 42-40 in double overtime to Maryland in a just really tough one. Like the ultimate punch
outside
to the gut
looking in on the playoff. And the other losses, John, the other losses were USC and Ohio State.
USC and Ohio State, which I think most people would probably pick as their 2 most probable. We'll get into this as we discuss the season more on a later episode.
The Maryland one was.
Yeah. I kind of think they're going to lose to Wisconsin and not USC, but we'll get into that later. But yeah, that obviously they lose the bowl game, go 9-4, and then lose Ethan Grunkemeyer, like I said, to the portal. No other losses. Drew Allar comes back, like everyone
you had
notable.
Some coaching offers.
Yes, I had. Could have gone all woo pig suey, gone to Arkansas, decided to stay. I don't even remember what the coach. It was
Clemson.
So for what, in case people are wondering, the coaches aren't in the game. And instead of like making James Franklin or anything, I just chose whatever auto-generated coach is in place there already. And like I said, could have gone woo pig suey, could have gone Clemson, despite that tough end to year one. Ended up staying at Penn State. Everyone comes back except I think Abdul Carter even came back. We
Carter
convinced him to stay. Yeah. This is the thing. This is where it gets a little less realistic here, in that we didn't recruit at all. The goal for this was just to simulate through and get some results, right? Like, so we could give them to you guys. So we also didn't hit the portal hard, which we obviously would have done if we were being a little more intentional with it. But the second year, like I said, Drew Allar comes back. You'd think he's got a chance at the Heisman. He's up to a 95 overall. And then Penn State drops a road game to Rutgers. And then still one loss, 9-1 heading into the last 2 weeks of the year, in a really good spot, in position to make the playoff. This is it. Just got to go 1-2 or 1-1. Sure, you face a tough Oregon team. Yeah, you face a tough Oregon team to end the season, but you're facing a Northwestern team that isn't very good at home in the second to last game of the year. Well, Penn State dropped that one, and then they dropped
Yeah.
the Oregon one, and then once again finished at 9-3 and ended up in the Music City Bowl. Just
Where they
really,
beat
really tough
Mizzou.
to see. Yeah, where they beat Mizzou, finished at 10-3, and that's where we kind of called it quits there to come record this podcast. But yeah, just like really
We
brutal ways
tried
to
to
do
get
it.
Penn State in the playoff for it. Like, we
I
tried.
I'm not gonna lie. I thought we were gonna sim 2 seasons. They were gonna be like the 8 seed in both seasons, and that was gonna be the end of it. And there was a brief moment there too where it looked like Pitt was gonna make it in the second year, and then they lose in conference championship week, and I think it was Miami ends up getting in instead.
Yeah.
So like it saved Penn State fans some pain of listening to this. Fortunately though, Audrey got revenge.
I did.
She played on freshman difficulty
Yeah.
against
Yeah.
the
I said, John,
the
hand me that controller. I haven't played a video game in at least 15 years.
and then
Knock it all the way down.
I
Yeah.
walked her through
Tell
what the
me what
buttons
buttons
do.
to hit.
Yeah, we had a full walkthrough of everything, and then she proceeded to stomp Pitt in the
In the
national title
national
game.
championship. Yeah.
Yeah, we did an exhibition game, set it as a national title game, and then Audrey destroyed Pitt at every phase. What was the final? Was it 48-0
It's
off the
like
top of
40.
my
It
head?
was a shutout.
It was a
And
shutout.
in true Audrey fashion, I was calling my timeouts late in the game to run up the score. I was that person. I was
She did
probably
say
giving
with
the imaginary coach some fits on the other sideline.
she said with 7 seconds left, "Oh, am I out of timeouts?" And I was like, "What are we doing here?"
I was I
7
was
seconds left in this
there.
game.
I
She
was
wanted
there
more.
to run up the score. I had a blast. Like, if you're someone like me who hasn't played a video game in a really long time, and you're thinking, ugh, I don't know if I want to invest in a system. I don't know if I want to invest in the game. I don't have time. I'm afraid I'm going to suck at the game, so I don't want to play. You won't be disappointed. Like, I think you will have a good time. You can knock the difficulty down. And then, even as John and I did, we put me on the hardest level just
Yeah,
so I
I
could
did
see
then.
that. Yeah.
I play on Heisman usually. I don't know that that'll surprise a lot of people given I talk about how much I play video games and everything. But I play on Heisman, so we put Audrey on Heisman, gave her Ohio State,
I picked
and
him.
I put
I
her
picked
yeah, I put her up against Texas State, who is the team that I will be using in my first online dynasty. We've got a 16-person online dynasty ready to go once everyone gets the game. Not the only online dynasty I'm in right away. It's going to be terrifying how I manage my schedule. But my Texas State Bobcats, as I have now been calling them for the last 3 months in preparation for this, were the team that Audrey took on. And then she got 2 stops early on 2 plays and then got eviscerated by
Yes.
the Texas State offense for a touchdown. Uh, Punted the ball away. I believe got the ball back on a
Yeah, so
punt.
I went 3 and out, and
Yeah.
then got
Oh, that's right.
eviscerated, and then
Yeah.
got the ball back. Couldn't figure out where my guy was, so I thought I was getting the ball, but I wasn't. I dropped it, so then I get backed up in my own territory.
At the
Most
3.
people would say, "Run the ball." Not me. Not when I'm playing a video game. We're chucking this ball around. Not going
Yeah.
well, and John
I don't
goes
there was no
John
chucking.
yeah, John goes, "Oh, you're definitely gonna get picked." And I was like, "Yeah, probably a pick 6 coming." Nope,
And then I
safety.
said, to be fair, I said shortly after, never mind, this is a safety. After I saw the play selection,
Yeah.
and then within 2 seconds of the snap, Audrey was down 9-0, and that is where we called it quits on her playing on Heisman.
And here's the
But I,
thing though, John. I think if I dedicated myself to it, like anything, right? If I played more frequently, I think I'd be decent. I think I'd be okay, right? Like, I think I could
yeah,
eventually
I
get
don't
to that
think you,
level. Like, I
need to play on freshmen. Like I think you could play on
yeah.
varsity and be fine. All American might be a bridge too far right now, but I think most people, it's like Madden. Like a lot of people play on All Pro on Madden instead of All
Yeah.
Madden. I think a lot of people are probably going to play on All American, and like that is, perfectly reasonable to get there eventually and play on that level. Heisman sometimes is just relegated for us sickos, and that's understandable. I did play as Texas State against Sam Houston State a little bit today. It, I can't. I know I said this earlier. It is so much fun. It feels so much more. Like I said, it feels more authentic, right? Like it all feels like you're
I
actually
was
playing a
again
college football game. Like, and
as
this is the one
it
thing
looks
I want to.
real.
Yeah, like I think the problem with sports games at times can be that they don't look or they don't feel like you're watching an NFL game or an NBA game or a Major League Baseball game. the presentation was done so well. The gameplay is really good too. Like I said, I have had my issues with gameplay in football games in the past. I think that's not an issue from my
I got to
my
get the
early
kicking
impressions of it.
down. The kicking I had some
Yeah,
trouble with,
the
but that's
kicking
just me
was
thinking
real
I was
tough for Audrey. That was tough.
yeah.
That was a tough go to watch,
There were
even on
some
freshmen. Some
yeah, I
brutal
was
ones.
still racking up Pitt even though I was giving him good field position.
Yeah, good field position every single time for what it's worth. She did kick one off her safety punt. She punted after the safety. This was the final play of the game because it went about 4 yards to the left and about no yards forward and was fair caught at her own 40-yard line. But yeah, I like the presentation aspect of this. The national title. The when even though it's an exhibition, like it's not during the dynasty, but they put on the pageantry of you winning the national title. It's really cool. You see guys holding the trophy up and excited and celebrating, and you see the
John taught me
traditions
how
of
to get
schools.
screenshots so I could share some of those
Yes,
images with you all.
I will say that Audrey perfected screenshotting while playing a PlayStation game more so than any other skill that she perfected while we were doing this.
Circle button, I
But yeah,
think, right?
it's a little share button on the
Oh,
left
that's
side of
the
the
share button
touchpad
and
there.
circle takes it
Yep.
back. Yeah.
Yep. That's right. Uh, as we continue to learn these things. But no, I like it really felt immersive. And I think for a lot of people who grew up just massive college football fans, massive fans of the old NCAA games, like that's what made it so fun, right? Like you felt like it was your school, whichever team you picked. Like I was joking with Audrey that like I think I might accidentally be a Texas State football fan now. I didn't mean to. Like I don't have a college football team, especially because you
Yeah.
cover the sport. But I was like, I think I might have accidentally become a Texas State fan because you get so bought in, and it allows you to get bought in. I think that's a really important part of it.
Oh, yeah, I think you're spot on with that. Like to me, again, as someone who hasn't looked at a video game in a very long time, watching Penn State run out of the tunnel, I was like, "Oh my gosh, like
Yeah,
this looks real." And like I've seen, the previews and stuff like everybody has on social media. But during the game, they'd cut to the crowd shots, right? You've got the Nittany Lion like ruffling up his or her ears, right? You've got the Nittany Lion doing the one-armed push-ups. You have the lion going, throughout the end zone at different points. You cut to the crowd. You've got the crowd doing the same Penn State chants. Like you've got people holding up their cell phones. Like you feel like, in a weird way, you feel like you're at a college football game. And when I played with Ohio State for that hot second, pregame, I said, Josh, I wonder if they're going to dot the I. Sure enough, they came out, they
of course
dotted
they
the
dot the
I.
I. Yep.
You got to, right? And it's all of those cool traditions. The land grant trophy, right? We were looking at that
Yes.
in our simulated game. I said, John, oh boy, there's the trophy, and it looks just as hideous in the game as it does,
Yep.
up close, right? Like so they
That's how
nailed
you know
that.
it's realistic when that thing looks awful.
Yes. Yeah, and like we also had some fun looking at the alternate uniforms that are in the game. So if you want to play with Penn State with the Generations of Greatness uniforms with the white shoes, the numbers on the helmet, you can do that. I thought that was really cool. We
Oregon's
also
uniforms are so
yeah,
awesome.
we went
I
through
love
like
Oregon's
there
uniforms.
were I have 3 or 4 different Oregon ones that we looked
Yeah.
at.
They're
They're pretty
they're
cool.
I think they're the eggshell ones. I love them so much. I know a lot of people hate
Yes.
those ones, but I love those uniforms
Eggshell
so
was
much.
one of them. There were a few of those. They were really cool. Um, yeah, all in all, I think a lot of people are gonna be spending a ton of time on this game, and it is the perfect segue, and I do wanna say, I think EA has done a great job capturing and also building off of the momentum of this game, right? Like by rolling out the ratings the way that they did, rolling out the
Yeah.
different clips, like they have owned these last 2.5 weeks for a game that you knew was going to be insanely popular, even if you like messed up kind of the rollout. And so they've just
Yep.
nailed it, I think, on every single level. Um,
And I
how
think I think
okay.
some people may be nervous about like, all right, what are the hiccups going to be when it initially comes out? I didn't really find anything so far, right? That I like that would frustrate me or anything like that. Like, and
Well, I
most
found one
importantly,
thing. It's
oh yeah, we
minor,
can
but
talk
we'll
about
get
that.
to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing for me is that it felt like what I wanted it to feel like. It felt like what it did when I played it as a high school senior, for the last time in 2013, right? Or college freshman, whenever I was in 2013 when it last came out. Like, or when I was, 13 or 14 playing it, in 2008 and 2009. Like it felt like what I wanted it to feel like and what it felt like then. And like Some of that is just nostalgia, right? And I understand that, and there's just some novelty to that. But the other part is it's also just fun, right? Like and that's my favorite thing to do in those games was to recruit, right? And I haven't touched recruiting yet, and I
Yeah.
cannot wait to do these online dynasties and to destroy my friends. A quick shout out to my buddy Corey, who is Sam Houston State, who's going to get decimated. To be clear, it is
Nice.
Texas State for a reason. The state is not called Sam Houston. I want that to be known. But like I'm that excited about this, right? Like this was so much fun. It was so cool to get a look ahead before everyone else too. But like it felt like everything I wanted it to be. And for people who listen, I've been playing video games forever now. I didn't take a hiatus like I'm sure some people have. I think for
Yeah.
people that are just getting back into it, like into Dynasty and everything, they're gonna love it, right? Like this is what it was. What the things that made it a lot of fun are still there from a gameplay standpoint. I was looking around recruiting a little bit. I obviously watched a lot of the same preview stuff that a lot of people did about recruiting. A lot of that seems like a lot of fun still. The transfer portal in the off season makes it better. Getting coaching offers at various times at the end of the season, I think, makes it more interesting. So like it was just really cool. I'm not one to like brag about like a game or something like that. Like if I think a game sucks, I'll tell you, right? Like it's like because I'll quit playing it real quick. I am going to be taking my PlayStation everywhere I travel this year, just because like I will be playing this nonstop until next
That's
July
good.
when
So I can
next year's
advance
iteration comes out.
past rookie mode. I'll just show up on the road and say, "Hey, John, remember that time I let you play the game early because I needed your console?"
Yes.
And we're doing this for work purposes, right? And I think, like, yeah, the thing that really I think is so special, and this is where again, like the thing that the game has nailed is like it's so cool just to look at the different venues, right? And we're just scratching the surface on it. Like I want to
Yeah.
see Notre Dame come out of the tunnel. I want to see Michigan come out. Like you want to see these iconic entrances.
Yeah.
We saw Beaver Stadium in a whiteout. We saw like the regular Penn State crowd. Like there's just so many different wrinkles to this game where, I think anybody, and again, if you're listening to us, you're a college football fan, so you're going to be among the people that's going to love it. I can speak to the if you haven't played a game in a really long time and you're worried that you might get frustrated, knock it down a few levels, build your confidence back up, but definitely do it. However, John, I'd like to now enter what
Yeah.
we're going to
The
refer to as the "they did them dirty" portion of the podcast.
Yeah, only a few here that we noticed,
Pretty
because they're all
minor.
Penn State related.
Mm-hmm.
Three players with Penn State connections. KJ Winston, Penn State's best player, I would argue, and highest rated on the team at 91. Uh, Dante Cephas, former Nittany Lion, and Keandre Lambert-Smith, who I mentioned earlier, all bald. Not
Yeah.
ideal.
Yeah. I like next time we
I
talk to
believe
KJ
Audrey
Winston.
said, "Oh my God, he's bald," when I pointed
Yes.
out that KJ
It does
Winston
not
was
look
on the screen.
anything like him. I was like, he looks bald. And then we looked and we're like, no, they made him bald and he is not bald. Yeah, we're gonna have to ask him about that. Like, how did
Yeah.
I think because one of the stories I'd been working on that will be up on the Athletic at some point here in the next probably this week. Myself and some colleagues, we've talked to college football coaches who either grew up playing the game or had interest in the game or were in the game. So I'm thinking like Phil Troutwine, Marcus Hagans, who like
We're never in
they
the game,
they were never in
technically.
the game technically, but like we
I
knew
believe
you
it was
were right.
offensive
You're
tackle
for the
number
team.
71 when
Yes,
Phil
right.
Troutman was there, something like that.
And one of the things that Marcus Hagans was telling me that when they would play the game at UVA, that he's like, you just wanted to be like good at the game. Like you don't want to be the guy that everybody's clowning on in the locker room.
Yep.
I think when people see KJ Winston on the team, they're gonna be like, what in the
That's gonna
world
be
happened?
tough.
Right?
That's gonna be
Like,
tough for him in the locker room.
especially for a guy that highly rated. I mean, again, some of the like they nailed Luke Reynolds' hair, they nailed Tony Rojas's hair. They got Nick Singleton looking pretty good. Drew Allar, to me, like at the line of scrimmage, the body type, like you're like that looks like Drew Allar.
Yeah.
But up close,
I
it's
was saying
weird.
this to you, like it's tough with faces because they don't face scan these guys
Hmm.
like they do in other sports games. Because like I'm sure they would if they could. I'm sure it's just way too much to try and do it. Maybe eventually they can. Uh, but so they look a little bit less realistic, but it is football. You're not seeing their face on the field anyways.
Well, here's the thing you do see though, John. This is my pet peeve.
Their
So
hometown.
their hometown. So the kind of the running
What's your
joke
hometown,
here,
by the way, Audrey?
my hometown is Downingtown, Pennsylvania. But the running joke was always, and I was in marching band in high school, and so we'd march in parades and stuff. And they'd announce it on TV, and they'd say, "Okay, here comes the blue and gold marching band from Downingtown, Pennsylvania." Right? I don't, for whatever reason, like I don't know, because I grew up there, it seems obvious to me, like TOWN town, not TON ton. So I said to John, I said, "Oh, go check Drew Shelton's hometown." Because it should be Downingtown. It's Downingtown. However, if you go to the Ohio State roster, because I then said, "Oh, check Will Howard's," because he's also from Downingtown. Will Howard is Downingtown. It's spelled correctly. Drew Shelton, Downingtown. So maybe they can update that, make that little fix, because a lot of people go to these.
I'm
games
sure
for
you'll
gameplay.
be on them about it.
I go for grammatical and spelling weird things.
That's right.
But
this wouldn't be two journalists doing a podcast if we weren't complaining about the grammar and the most hotly anticipated sports game of the decade.
Yeah, just a little factual thing that I met, probably only me and Drew Shelton will notice, right?
That's right.
But yeah, all in all, I hope you all, if you want to play the game, if you have any interest in the game, I hope you do. John is gonna slip into oblivion here with the game. I am off.
I thought about
week.
doing a live stream, not of me like playing, but just watching me slowly deteriorate over the course of the week.
But there's going to be a knock at your door at some point. It's going to be me saying, "Hey, John, or I think you're busy. You got to do something. Your wife needs you to take care of something. I'll keep your PlayStation 5 going.
I'll keep that couch in front of the door. Nobody's getting in.
Yeah,
I promise you, nobody's leaving either.
I'm telling you, this is how we're spending our last week before Big Ten Media Days, before the season gets rolling. You and I will both be out in Indianapolis for that. We know Penn State talks July 24th. So
the unofficial start of the season for us, really, right? That's when we kick it into gear. And that's when, too, by the way, we'll do a podcast from Indy, but we'll be back to weekly starting at that point, right? This
off
week.
Season's almost gone. Yep.
Like I said, this is coming out Monday. Audrey on vacation, and for better reasons than I have, I'm on vacation. So we won't be recording anything else past today, but starting next week, we'll be back once a week. Can't wait.
I was checking this, John. Somebody was texting me about they were trying to get Drew Allar into a Heisman race in the game. So I've now become a video game.
Yeah, that was the other thing. Nobody else, no Nittany Lions in the Heisman watch at all during year 1 or year 2. Fortunately, Audrey can fix that for you by playing on. Audrey can fix that for you by playing on freshmen for all 12 games.
Yeah, if ever you're in need of any advice on the freshman level, that I'm your person.
And I will be leading my Texas State Bobcats to victory week in and week out. But I think that'll do it for this episode of the Nittany Dispatch. This has been a lot of fun. Today was a lot of fun. Like I said, I hope everyone who gets this game enjoys it as much as I did and gets the feelings of nostalgia, but also enjoys the things that, are still fun and new in the game. So we will be back next week to do that Media Days podcast. Audrey will be covering Media Days. I will be covering Media Days, as she said. I will have at some point this week another story on CenterDaily.com that I would recommend you check out. I don't want to get too into it yet. I'm not certain when it's going to publish, so I don't want to tease that just yet. But very excited. Something I've been working on for a good bit now. And then it'll be Penn State football all day, right? Every day. It's going to be nonstop for what I think we can agree is a pretty big season. So we'll do some preview stuff. We'll do some prediction stuff. It'll be a lot of fun. Our first preview season as the Nittany Dispatch.
Our first full season, yeah.
Yeah, very exciting. So find Audrey on Twitter at OddSnyder4. You can find me on Twitter at John Sauber. Of course, you can find all of Audrey's writing at The Athletic. You can find mine at the Center Daily Times. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube down below. This has been a lot of fun. Until next time, thank you for tuning in. Have a great day.